Welcome to REIA Rico, guys. Thank you for coming. We're doing a live stream for the first time, so we're trying to continue to expand. My name is Zachary, and I just want to briefly explain the agenda, what we're going to do. We have a guest speaker, Adam Greenfader. He's going to chat about some things that he's doing. He's been on the island for a while, so he's very experienced. And we're also going to have Felix, of course, do a market report, talk about everything that's going on in Puerto Rico. And I just want to explain a little bit about what we do. So we have this monthly meeting. We also have the deal makers meeting every Saturday at 7:30 in the morning. Right now we're actually having it at a private residence. If anyone knows Robbie Krager, we're having it at his house. His wife usually makes some eggs, so that's nice. And yeah, some bacon sometimes. But we're also doing lunch and learn. So we want to eventually do this more and more. I know some people have attended. Who's gone to some of the lunch and learns recently? Christopher? Nice. So we want to continue to do that. We're doing that Friday right now, every Friday. And we're also having a trade. Actually, it's not every Friday. It's every other Friday. The every other Friday is a trade group where we trade real estate. So the other big thing that we're doing is a podcast. So it's called Real Estate Oasis. There's a couple of us, me, Felix, Mikey, and Robert Krager that are doing this. And we're going to start to distribute this more and more. I think we're meeting this Sunday, actually, to do a shooting. So, yeah. Thank you, guys. I want to...
What's it called?
Real Estate Oasis. I do want to introduce our fearless leader here, Catherine. And, yeah, let's do that.
Thank you, Zachary. Zachary's getting ready to sit for the real estate exam next week, so yeah, wish him luck on that. Okay, so I just want to take a little poll, figure out who's here. So how many people, it's their first time here at this meeting? Okay, well, thank you guys for coming. How many people here are investing in real estate, currently investing in real estate? Okay, well, that's a good number of you. And how many here are actually investing in Puerto Rico real estate? Okay, great. And how many people here want to be investing in Puerto Rico real estate? Like everybody's hand should be up, go to real estate meetings. So. Okay, well, good. Well, I think we're going to learn a lot tonight with our speaker. And before we get started, I have a couple announcements. So starting next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be co-hosting a clubhouse room with a guy named Omar Merced. And he's a Puerto Rican guy who lives in Las Vegas. He's a big clubhouse user. I've been following him on Clubhouse for probably 6 months. And he reached out to me and asked me to be part of his Clubhouse, do a room in Clubhouse. So look for Investing in Puerto Rico on Clubhouse starting next Tuesday. Yes?
Clubhouse, do you have to be invited to be in Clubhouse?
No. Well,
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Open now, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, because I did have an invite like 6 months ago to get into Clubhouse.
I have a couple invites left if anyone, but we don't need that anymore, right? Okay.
Yay.
Good. Easy. So I wanted to give out a couple of cards for our annual members. So I have some cards that I made up. So the people who have paid $249 to become annual members here get everything included in the membership. So that's the deal makers breakfast every single Saturday morning. That's the lunch and learns. That's the trade groups. That's, of course, the WhatsApp group, the Facebook group, the YouTube, the podcasts, all of that stuff. Some of it's free, but some of these things won't be free forever. So the smart people in the room who've already committed to REIA Rico, I'm going to announce, and you can come up and get your card. We have Fabian Toledo and Myra Medrano. We have Candace Bryan. Candace, I'll say hi to you from here. I know you're watching us virtually. Jan Morales. Here you guys go. Thanks for coming back. He's scary. I turned it off. It upset me. Okay, so we've got Jan Morales, Robert Krager, I don't think he's here, Jamar Johnson, Michael Rooney, Imran Mukhtar, Mason Pagan, no, you're here, David McCauley, William Hollick, Felix Barradas. Oh, sorry, I went too fast. Here you go. Thank you. Imran Mukhtar, David McCauley, William Halleck, AJ, Lance Denning. All right. Thank you guys for your support and for being members here. I really appreciate it. Yeah. I do want to mention we have 2 sponsors, and we have one that's been our sponsor every single month. And he's not here, he's in New Jersey, but I do want to mention him because he's been very supportive of the club, and that is Bill Halleck of Aceland Mortgage. If you are looking for a mortgage, he's licensed here in Puerto Rico, and I know he's worked with some of the people in this room. His phone number is 800-254-3150, or you can look him up under Aceland Mortgage. So please send some business his way if you are looking to buy property here in Puerto Rico. He's very creative and I can't guarantee he can get you approved, but he has several different programs that he uses to work with both homeowners and investors. So the next segment is our market report. So we have our very own Felix Barradas. He's a native Puerto Rican from Boca Raton who studied mechanical engineering in Mayagüez. And after graduating, he joined Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City, Utah. And then he decided to leave Utah and come back to beautiful Puerto Rico in 2020. He joined Life Afar as a senior associate of business development, responsible for raising capital, managing relationships, and supporting the development of the projects in Puerto Rico. Felix.
Thank you. Okay, where should I?
You need a chair, huh?
I can sit there.
Right, here's your...
Perfect. Hola, hola. Okay, guys, so yeah, now. Okay, guys, so the way I do this market report is pretty much I cover some of the news that's been happening in Puerto Rico for the last month. So a lot of interesting topics that I'll be covering today. They're not only real estate related, so it's everything that's impacting the economy currently. And yeah, let's get started. So the first article I got here is Norwegian Gem arrives in Puerto Rico. So Norwegian Cruise Lines resumed its arrival in Puerto Rico with the Norwegian Gem. The Norwegian Gem arrived in the island with roughly 1,300 passengers, which is 48% of its maximum capacity of 2,800 people. According to the Puerto Rico Tourism Company, the initial visit of the cruise ship is projected to have an economic impact of $250,000 from passenger spending. So passengers had their first Puerto Rican experience at the San Juan dock, where they were greeted by dancers, vigilantes, and musicians to the sound of bomba y plena. To facilitate the transfer process to the shore excursions, there were personnel from PRTC, which is the Puerto Rican Tourism Company, and the Ports Authority. Any of you know what bomba y plena is? No? Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. So bomba y plena, yeah, it's a traditional Puerto Rican dance. You'll get to see a lot of it around Christmas time, so stay tuned. This one's really interesting for any of you that are film fans here. Production of the plane film shores up $136 million for Puerto Rico economy. So the plane, the latest Hollywood feature film to be produced entirely on the island, will generate some $136 million for the local economy, including hotel stays, withholding tax payments, and other investments. Government and the movie staff confirmed. So filming began about 4 months ago and has moved to different locations in and outside the San Juan metropolitan area. This includes Barrio Obrero, Roosevelt Roads, in Ceiba, Pedrin Zorrilla Stadium, which was actually transformed into a soundstage for interior shots. So our investment, in other words, the tax credits what we granted to the project was $26 million. You don't have to be a CPA to realize that the return on the investment is excellent, said Governor Pedro Pierluisi during a news conference. His comments preceded a pitch for the approval of Senate Bill 552 and House Bill 926 that would increase the cap for available film industry tax credits from the current $38 million to $100 million. If we get that $100 million, I hope they film Avatar 2 here in Puerto Rico. That will be pretty cool. It just
Puerto Rico pays 40% for film budgets too, I've heard.
in the tax credits for Puerto Rico, I think it's 40%, if I'm not mistaken.
They'll match 40% of your film budget, I've heard. Wow. If it's all shot and done here.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm not very familiar with the film sector here in Puerto Rico. More familiar with the tourism sector.
Sure.
But yeah, one person that could be good for this is what's her name? Jennifer Sims. Yeah, she might have more ideas into how that specifically works. So yeah. So the current cap makes it impossible to have additional productions here in the future. I believe we must convince the Financial Oversight and Management Board for Puerto Rico that this is cost effective. So far, the board has objected to credit cap being greater than $50 million that it was in the past, Pierluisi said. So the credits available for the 2022 fiscal year were exhausted in June before the year started, and we're splitting among 4 projects. Those were Fantasy Island, which filmed over the summer, and The Plane. Coming up are the filmings of the sequel to The Wedding Crashers and Gordita Chronicles, a television series by Sony Pictures that will stream on HBO Max. Gordita Chronicles, yeah. It's a good name. So, Rosy Acosta, director of the government's Film Industry Development Program, said there are 13 more projects on a waiting list, which could benefit from an increase in the maximum total of credits available. From 2019 through the end of the year, some 72 film projects, including music videos, commercials, movies, television series, short films, video games, that's me, and animation projects have been wrapped up, she said. Meanwhile, the Hollywood production company has reportedly invested $65.7 million, generating about 500 jobs split between cast, crew, and production staff that generated a payroll of about $19 million. That represents an injection of $3.8 million into the Treasury's department coffers and withholding taxes at a rate of 20%, said the Department of Economic Development and Commerce, Manuel Sidre. Over the past 4 months, the production company has paid for nearly 4,000 hotel room nights. Filming is slated to wrap in October 4th. So the film's leading actor, Gerald Butler, said working in Puerto Rico has been a joy. And I'll quote his what he mentioned about Puerto Rico. I came here once before for one day passing through Puerto Rico, and I remember saying to my friends that I felt like every person I met here could be my best friend. They were so nice. So that's carried on. Having a chance to actually spend some time here and work closely with locals who are so warm and friendly, and they work hard, and it's been really awesome, he said. So, viva Puerto Rico. Okay. Puerto Rico government signs minimum wage hike law. So, Governor Pedro Pierluisi signed an increase in the state minimum wage into law. As of January 1st, 2022, an increase to $8.50 per hour will begin. The increase could represent an approximate increase of more than $2,000 per year for an employee who works full-time. For a long time, thousands of workers on the island have not received an increase in the minimum wage, but they have had an increase in the cost of living for the past 12 years. A payment of $7.25 an hour is no longer sustainable to live in Puerto Rico, so it was time to do justice to the working class, the governor said as he signed the law. According to the approval law, on July 1, 2023, the minimum wage will be $9.50, and on July 1, 2024, it will be $10.50, unless the Minimum Wage Evaluation Committee, which is attached to the Department of Labor, issues a mandatory decree varying the same. Similarly, the governor's advisory board on the minimum wage was created, which is made up of 3 representatives of the union sector, 3 renowned economists, representatives of multiple private sector associations, and heads of government agencies that deal with labor affairs and economic development. Passenger traffic up 14.8% at Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport last month versus August 2019. So total passenger traffic using the Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport in San Juan showed a 14.8% increase in August versus the same month in 2019. Grupo Aeroportuario del Sureste, which is the parent company of Aerostar, which operates the airport, reported a total of 935,000 travelers passing through Puerto Rico's main airport from August 1st to the 31st. When compared to the same period in 2019, the airport saw 815,000 passengers walk through. In August 2020, the total was 302,000. So last month's total is broken down into 872,000 domestic travelers and 63,000 international passengers, a segment that is still picking up as the pandemic restrictions are eased. Year to date, nearly 6.5 million passengers have used the airport, up 102% from the 3.2 million recorded in 2020, and still flat when compared to 2019, when traffic was still unaffected by the pandemic. So this one's pretty cool. Prico buildings will be rehabilitated. Anyone familiar with Prico here? Got some buildings from Prico?
Actually, I think they don't even do co-broke.
No?
I think they're very close and fight.
Okay. Well,
But if they're doing things like that, maybe hopefully they're open the market and let everybody.
yeah. So
operate.
I'll talk a little bit about what they're doing, and yeah, maybe there's opportunities for people in the future to buy some of those buildings. So the Puerto Rico Industrial Development Company has begun the process of proposals for the mitigation, design, and permits to rehabilitate its building and industrial parks around the island, with an approved allocation of funds of $154 million from FEMA. At the moment, there are 106 projects on the agenda that represent 354 buildings and 53 industrial parks that need major reconstruction works or minor improvements. This was all caused by the damage of Hurricane Maria on the island. So the industrial parks, of which there are 4, need pools, sidewalks, asphalt, substations. They're distributed in all regions of the island. However, there is an order of priority of the project. So the southern area, which was impacted by Maria in 2017 and the 2020 earthquakes, has priority. In addition, the San Juan metropolitan area, which is in a second place for having great demand for projects. The eastern area ranks third in priority since Maria first entered Puerto Rico through there. And that is followed by the western area and then the northern area. There will be projects that will be able to be inaugurated in 2022. Among them, he identified those of simpler repairs such as roofs and windows. Prico's goal, once the structures are repaired, is to lease the facilities, although they do not rule out that there are properties that can be sold. Currently, the public corporations generate about $64 million annually in rent. The occupancy percentage of Prico remains 74%, which I find it to be very, really? 74% seems high for Prico. Okay, so Canadian energy firm gets $21 million order to build net zero homes in Puerto Rico. Dynamic Hybrid Technologies, a Canadian company that does business in Puerto Rico, announced it has received an order for 141 storm and earthquake-resistant homes in Arroyo, Carolina, and Vega Baja, representing $21 million in revenue. The so-called net zero homes average about 150,000 and are developed with virtually indestructible materials, according to them, powered by its ultralight solar panels as part of a massive hurricane recovery efforts to protect homes against future natural disaster. The company uses a patented design and sustainable materials to create high-performance net zero housing products for global residential, commercial, and public sector applications. As part of the Hurricane Maria recovery effort, Dynamic Hybrid Technologies and BFA has received 200 orders to build the cement block and solar-powered home across Puerto Rico. The 141 additional orders pushes the total to 341 units, with the joint venture starting construction immediately. The joint ventures expect to finalize the first 35 homes by the first quarter of 2022 and ramp up capacity to build more than 50 homes per month starting in March 2022. As the U.S. Congress continues to appropriate funding, $20.8 billion has been deployed to date for Puerto Rico recovery efforts. An estimated 38,000 homes will be rebuilt in Puerto Rico over the next 5 years, the joint venture stated. An additional $50 billion in allocated funding committed by federal agencies is currently being rolled out according to the Central Office of Recovery, Reconstruction, and Resiliency, or CORE. So far, 70,000 or more Cat 5 blocks have been manufactured in Puerto Rico, enough to build the first 35 net zero homes. Blocks required for the remaining orders are currently in production and will be finalized by the first quarter of 2022. Net zero homes are building using Lego type designs, and its walls require no sheetrock, fiberglass, or wood. Instead, the insulation is integrated within the blocks, meaning no risk of mold if the home gets flooded. The reinforced concrete can withstand winds of more than 200 miles per hour, and the closed cell foam holds the walls together in an event of a seismic event. They are solar powered. Ports Authority receives historic grant for Aguadilla Airport. So the Puerto Rico Ports Authority has just received an additional grant for a total of $45 million to develop the construction project for the new runway at the Rafael Hernandez Colon International Airport in Aguadilla, informed the agency's executive director, Joel Pisa. The new grant joins the one announcement in September last year for $24.2 million awarded by the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, as well as the $30 million that Governor Pedro Pierluisi recently managed to obtain in state funds in order to carry out this significant project for the Aguadilla Airport and the entire western region of the island. So, with the new grant of 100% federal funds and state money, Ports Authority has about $100 million of the $130 million that is estimated to be the total cost of the project. The development of the Aguadilla Airport is one of Governor Pedro Pierluisi's critical projects, so they're really getting their hands on it. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thank you. I'll leave you with Catherine here.
That's a lot of stuff.
A lot, yeah.
All right. Like a lot of good news and interesting economic things going on here.
Yeah.
Do you have fun when you do this and like just see all the stuff going on and go like, yes, yes, more money for Puerto Rico. Okay, so I have someone else that I want to introduce, and this is someone who has also generously sponsored our meeting and our club, and this is Dollar Zing. And Dollar Zing is a digital platform that enables gifting and receiving amongst the member community for the purpose of doing good today, whether between single members, local members, or contributors to charities. Gifting and receiving is the main concept and culture and purpose. So we have Brent Foley. You want to come on up? I'll get your PowerPoint started. You can go ahead. Say hello to Brent.
How are you guys doing tonight? Doing well. Doing well. Thank you, REIA Rico, for having me here tonight, be able to present in front of you. My name is Brent Foley. And to start off, I would like to ask the audience if anyone has a dollar bill. Has anyone got a dollar? You, sir.
I have a dollar.
Yeah, can you read me off the serial number for me, please? I'll take my dollar out, and then I'll read you off mine.
It is B2600
2600. Okay.
907. C is in Charlie.
Well, you already got me beat. I have a 09449579, man. So, hey, this dollar is yours. All right, thank you. And then do I just switch it from here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Okay, yeah,
Hopefully it'll work.
that's no worries.
Okay.
All right, so before I get into Dollar Zing, I just want to let you all know a little bit more about myself. So I first moved here to Puerto Rico after reading about Hurricane Maria and seeing all the devastation here. Now, I have a construction background my family's had for all the way back to my grandfather's age. And after seeing all the devastation, I thought, Puerto Rico would be a great place to go and be able to help rebuild. And so I packed my bags. I told my mom and dad, sorry, I'm not going to that college y'all want me to. I'm going to move to Puerto Rico. And I did. And as soon as I got here, I was faced with daily challenges and sacrifices when living on an island that has a fragile infrastructure. You know, your fridge, your food goes bad, or only cold waters, no AC. So it was challenging. But as time passed, I, saw the beauty in it. All the way from the land to the beaches to the potholes and crazy drivers. It was, I found appreciation in all this place. And as I stayed here, I saw that the community that Puerto Rico has is a very strong bond, and I really appreciated that. So I stayed here for about 2 years, and I got a call to go help my family build a house in California for a client of theirs. So that was right before COVID, and so I helped them build the house. Was in California, COVID happened, and it kind of locked me down there. But now I am back here in Puerto Rico, been here for 3 months, and with a new opportunity, but the same intentions. I just want to help the people of Puerto Rico. So that's where it takes me into Dollar Zing. So Dollar Zing is a platform that has gamified charitable donations through the members of our community to our partner charities and a $1 bill. So what can that dollar do for you now? Yeah, maybe take it to the Mi Salve or 99-cent store. Yeah, you can go to the gas station, get some chips.
No, Earth Chips.
Oh, Earth chips.
Yeah, I'm going to donate it to Earth Chips.
Okay. Word. Sweet.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So what if a dollar could go buy you a dinner, or take you shopping, as well as with paying it forward to a charity? Well, with Dollar Zing, these possibilities are endless. So how does Dollar Zing work? So Dollar Zing is a peer-to-peer gameplay using a $1 bill. Each member scans the serial number on their $1 and goes through an algorithm and creates a highest value. So based on your value, the better the player with the higher value dollar would receive the other member's dollar. So they then have the $2 and have a decision to make, whether they just want to receive at that $2 level, or they can play it to the 4, 8, 12, or 4, 8, 16, all the way to 1,024. So as wherever the member chooses to receive at, then 10% or more of their receivings go to a charity that they play for. So we're building a gifting and receiving community of like-minded members who look to pay it forward. And as we do this with Dollar Zing, we like to call it social conscious gaming, which is to help encourage people through games to have better behavior, be a good person, do a good deed. And that problem that we're really working to solve here is sustainable charitable donations for the community, for the charities, so they can have those resources needed to go out there and create their impact, so they don't have to feel like they could have done more, or they have to plan on a month-to-month basis. And now why Puerto Rico? As I told you all in the beginning of what my original intentions were here is to come and help rebuild from working construction and masonry. I thought it'd be a great opportunity, but now I'm back here in Puerto Rico with a new opportunity with the same intentions to still help the community members, but in a different way now, of helping with people like us to work with our charities and then through the communities. So I have a video right here if it might come up. Yeah. Okay, so the video doesn't want to come up. So, part of Dollar Zing is that we want to work with our charities and our community members to do community projects. So for our first community project is a park right in the heart of Condado called Parque de Libertad. Now, Parque de Libertad has, for the ones who might know, has been abandoned even before Maria and has just kind of been shunned away, even though it's right smack in the center of a highly populated tourist area. So we're working with our charities and speaking with the DRNA to revitalize and refurbish and repurpose the park for events just like this, music events, farmers markets.
Farmers markets, Kim.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's not owned by the DNR.
the DRNA it's actually a state park from their side. So we spoke with Condado and they're all for it, and now they sent us over to the DRNA because since it's a national park of Puerto Rico or plaza, they have the overall say and approval. So that's just some of the things that we're doing here at Dollar Zing as a company. We have launched on the App Store in April and have done a very soft marketing, but now going out to acquire the members and really test our experiment here and see how much impact we can bring from the community. And I would like to ask you guys, what projects can you or your business do with a local charity or community here to help step in and bring that involvement and really be there? So I'm going to finish off on one last note. So a great tennis player once said, Arthur Ashe, said, "What you get, you can make a living, but what you give makes a life." And I'd like to end it at that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, Brent. Kim has a question.
How old are you, Brent?
I'm 23 years old.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to see you.
I know. I usually find myself to be the youngest ones in the rooms, but it's nice because I can learn a lot from the people here and really, kind of help gain more knowledge. So yeah, thank you all for being here and allowing me to present and take the time to talk Dollar Zing with you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Okay. So I'm really grateful for Dollar Zing sponsoring tonight's meeting. So I think anyone, go take a look at it. Go take a look at what it is. I mean, if it's $1, right? Like, spend $10. Just have some fun with it. Play around. So one of the things I love to do is forced networking. And the reason I do it is because sometimes we don't get out of our comfort zone and approach people we don't know. We go back to the people we know, and I'm totally guilty of this myself. So I like to do this forced networking, which makes you go talk to people that you don't know and maybe learn some people and make some connections that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So the way I do it is based on your name tag, and the color of your name tag, you're getting into groups with that color. So in a minute, I'm going to have you get into groups. But what you're going to do is you're going to say your name, where you're from, what your career is, or what you're doing or in real estate. But I always like to have a question that people can kind of riff off. And my question is kind of because Dollar Zing is here, so it's, we have the dollar bill up there. The focus is going to be dollars, and what I want to do is give you a problem. The problem is you get $100,000 right now, and you have to spend it or invest it in the next 24 hours, or it goes away. What are you going to do? So go take your $100,000 and figure out what to do with your new friends. We're going to get into groups. We're going to have the red people go over by the red trash can. So if you got a red tag, go over here. We're going to have the green tags go by that green table. Let's have the blue tags go in the back by the bar. Let's have the yellow tags go over here in this section. Yellow, green, blue, what's left? Purple. Let's have purple go sort of by the refrigerators. Purple by the refrigerators. So the bar is blue, red by the red trash cans. Purple's right over here by the refrigerators. Hey. Me too. Yes, I know. So I'm really excited about tonight's speaker. Adam Greenfader, I met him a couple of months ago, and he's the managing partner of AG&T, a real estate development and advisory firm based in Miami, Florida. And AG&T specializes in hospitality, residential, and commercial developments in the Caribbean and Latin America. And Adam lived in Puerto Rico for 25 years, and he's worked on over 55 developments valued at $1.5 billion. And he currently chairs the Urban Land Institute's Caribbean Council and is the Florida liaison for the Puerto Rico Builders Association. He's passionate about sustainable building, aquatic architecture, and the use of blockchain technologies in real estate, which I'm excited to hear about. So give a hand to Adam.
Great, thank you, Catherine. And really appreciate being invited here. I've met a few of you guys before. I have some very dear old friends that are here as well. So just want to say, Zachary's, big shout out to Zachary, and I think this is breaking up. Alberto's my partner, raise your hand. Alberto does all our real estate. He's the president of AG&T in Puerto Rico. And Nathan right next to him, he's our capital partner, so anything that has to do with funding and debt and equity, he's the guy to talk to. And then way back there is Michael Awesome, and his name really is Awesome. And there he is, and he's our title guy. So if you ever need to figure out title, I would say the secret to success in Puerto Rico, for me, has really been having dear friends and staying tight and having a lot of integrity. It's a small island, everybody knows everything, so if you keep your nose clean, you'll rise to the top. So, pretty interesting presentation. I'm going to talk about, can you guys hear me if I don't use this? Am I okay like this? I'd rather just speak loud and not have this. So I'm going to talk about why Puerto Rico, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of the history. But before I do that, I just wanted to ask you guys, how many have been here on the island less than 1 year? 1 year. Okay. And how many have been here 3 years or less? Okay. How many have been here like 5 years? Okay, only one. And then how many are locals, have been here forever? Okay, so we got about 15%. So this is a really, really great crew. There's some of you guys that are just here. A lot of you have just gotten your feet wet. And I'm going to try to talk about a little bit of the history of Puerto Rico. Then I'm going to talk about some of the opportunities in real estate, which is why we're all here. So I guess I'll just go by this. Okay. All right. So
Ability to see you.
So my story. My story is I knew nothing of Puerto Rico before I went to college and met a Puerto Rican woman. And for all of you guys who are not married, always read your marital contract, right? Because there on the bottom of my marital contract, it said, you are going to move to Puerto Rico. Yep, didn't know it, knew nothing of it. So 25 years later, I raised 2 kids in Ocean Park, spent every weekend with my shoes off, had 2 Great Danes, and had just a wonderful, wonderful, blessed life. And I have so many incredible memories, and I know that you guys who are coming here are going to find the same. The best thing about Puerto Rico is the Puerto Rican people. The Puerto Rican people are really this noble class of individuals who, if you get to know them and they get to know you, they will be with you forever. We have employees in our company that have worked 35 years. The average age of time working in the company is 22 years. So we have one gentleman who's 87 years old. He still comes in to do accounting. every day for a half of a day in our office. We stick with our employees forever, they will stick with you forever. It's that kind of philosophy. So we do AG&T, we do real estate development. We've done development all throughout Puerto Rico. We started doing affordable housing, we've done luxury housing, we've done multifamily, all types of residential, and then we moved into the hotel space. Basically what we do is we try to connect capital today with land. That's, our secret. Bottom line, that's what we do. We connect capital with land. Puerto Rico has always been about immigration, people coming, people leaving. Everyone today says, well, so many people have left Puerto Rico, 500,000 people left. Puerto Rico has had 500,000 to 600,000 people leave on multiple times in its history. From 1946 to 1960, 600,000 Puerto Ricans left the island to go work. And then they came back, right? So what I see you guys doing, you guys coming back, this is normal, and we will have people come back to the island. So don't ever, get depressed. Oh, if people aren't here, the economy's not going to do well. That is not the case. People come and they go, because in Puerto Rico, we're not immigrants, we migrate, right? We're U.S. citizens. Here, everybody is an American. You have a passport. You can use the dollar. You have the U.S. courts, right? So we're all Americans. The only difference is when we go to the United States, we get a driver's license and we can vote for the President of the United States, right? And we get 2 senators and 5 congressmen if we live in a big state. We don't have that here, and that's kind of been part of the challenges that Puerto Rico has had. So my story was pretty simple. We were building a lot of homes. We were building about 150 homes every year. When I got here in 93, very busy. There was a saying, todo se vende. And you guys, how many speak Spanish? Good, that's a great start. Todo se vende means everything sells, everything sells. And that was the mood back then. In the 1990s, we could just build houses, and if we found a construction problem, we just raised the prices, and people would still buy. We'd start a project in the morning, there'd be lines of people trying to buy and option the project, and it would get optioned within 5 or 6 hours. We'd have 200 homes sold in 5 or 6 hours, and then people would take the contracts and sell them and make money without even closing. I mean, the times were great. Puerto Rico was considered the happiest place in the world, and we heard Time magazine say that, and all these magazines say that. It was a great time. It was just wonderful to live here. I always would tell my friends, why do I like Puerto Rico? Because I can work 8 months out of the year and get paid for 12. Right? Well, how could you not love that, right? That's just the best. You get sun, you get everything. It was a great, 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 great time. Okay? But then things started to go wrong. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because if you guys are here, you kind of need to know some of the history. I'm not going to bore you too much with too much of it, but you need to know some of it. And when things started to go wrong, financing disappeared, and now suddenly most of us, like myself, we were out of work. We couldn't do any building, we couldn't do any construction. And so we had to adapt. And resiliency has always been a big part of Puerto Rico. So basically, just to really understand where we're at, Puerto Rico was dominated by Spain for almost 400 years. So if anyone tells you that Puerto Rico under Spain was this great place and it was wonderful, that is just BS. Puerto Rico was ruled by military rule. Those forts you see in El Morro that are beautiful, those were used as a military might. And everything under Puerto Rico was ruled by the military. U.S. comes in 1898, takes over Puerto Rico, and next thing you know, Puerto Rico is given triple tax incentive bonds. Right? This is incredible. Puerto Rico has been borrowing money since 1912. Puerto Rico is one of the first municipal bond markets in the United States. When the United States bond market was just starting, they said, well, let's just start it up in Puerto Rico. Let's use triple tax incentives. And so Puerto Rico, from day one, has been borrowing money, borrowing money, borrowing money. It's not this thing that suddenly now Puerto Rico was borrowing money. Puerto Rico's been borrowing money since 1912. So the U.S. comes in and it changes the zoning system. The first thing it does is it says the Spanish zoning system was based on revenues. You generated revenues, you were zoned and paid based on the revenues. U.S. comes in and starts zoning based on use. And the U.S.'s goal was to take Puerto Rico and create a sugar industry. So it started rezoning. And with the rezoning, a lot of people lost their lands. A lot of the local people lost their lands. And that's the reality of it, right? And the U.S. bet all its money and all its interest on sugarcane, right? And sugarcane was going to rule the day, right? Sugarcane was going to rule the day. Well, sugarcane in the 1913s, 14, 15 was fine. But what happened in the 1920s? Late 1920s, the Great Depression.
And suddenly sugar was a luxury. And so what happened to the sugarcane market? It dropped. So this great experiment to make Puerto Rico the sugarcane thing failed miserably. And with the failure of the sugarcane, all of the other agriculture, we've had conversations about agriculture, all of the other agriculture that Puerto Rico had, it sustained itself before the Americans came, it disappeared. That's gone. There was no more other agriculture. It was all in sugarcane fields. So there was this dependency, and the economy of Puerto Rico suffered, right? It suffered. Long story short, Jones Act, you guys have all heard about the Jones Act. It's got to be on U.S. ships, blah, 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 blah. Increases the price. That is a fact. And then, Puerto Ricans go to World War I. What is great about World War I? The first shot fired in World War I was fired where? Puerto Rico, El Moro. The first Puerto Rican fires the first shot for the U.S. Unfortunately, Puerto Ricans couldn't wear U.S. uniforms. They could not wear U.S. uniforms. They had to go wear French uniforms and fight with the French because at that time, when Puerto Rico was created, whites and blacks were not allowed to be together, right? So a lot of this place that you're living in was formed at a time when there was still signs on doors that said colored and whites, right? So a lot of this whole way that Puerto Rico was organized at a time that was not the same morals that we have today of equality. Just think about it. So that was kind of interesting. U.S. Congress gets plenary power, and this is really important message. At the end of the day, Puerto Rico is ruled by one branch of the U.S. government, not three, one branch. One branch, if it tomorrow wakes up and says, I want to do this, or I want to do that, it can do that, right? So this plenary power is a very big thing because ultimately it's going to affect how Puerto Rico works. So what happens? Puerto Rico is a mess. It gets through the Great Depression in a mess. All the slums in Puerto Rico that you see today were basically happened back then. World War II happens. U.S. wins. Everything is rocking. So the Puerto Ricans, they leave. They get out of Puerto Rico. 600,000 of them go. And then suddenly the U.S. was like, well, we got to do something about this. We can't handle everybody. Operation Bootstrap. How many of you heard of Operation Bootstrap? Okay, big thing. We are having an Operation Bootstrap today. This is a big thing. So basically it was like, okay, we got to solve the problems in Puerto Rico. What are we going to do? We are going to create manufacturing. Sugar didn't work. We're going to create manufacturing. And so tax incentives started. Tax incentives, right? So they created these amazing tax incentives, and what happened to the economy of Puerto Rico? It started to boom, right? Because now U.S. had a place to manufacture. And Puerto Ricans are great manufacturers. Puerto Ricans are hard workers. Puerto Ricans are a homogeneous workforce, which still to this day is really important. If you go to a factory, Hewlett-Packard in Puerto Rico, or a Hewlett-Packard in Texas, the Hewlett-Packard factory in Puerto Rico is by far more efficient because it's got a homogeneous workforce that is stable. All of the people there are Puerto Ricans from the manager down, and they're not moving every 2 years to go somewhere. Oh, sorry. They're all the same. All the Puerto Ricans speak the same language, right? In Texas, there might be some Mexicans, there might be some Americans, there might be some blacks, there might be some whatever. But in Puerto Rico, having all the same Puerto Ricans together makes them very efficient. And that's why Puerto Rico has become the industrial manufacturing powerhouse of the world. Still to this day, Puerto Rico manufactures more than the next 5 states in the United States. Okay? Huge fact. You drive around Puerto Rico, you see all these factories. It happened with Operation Bootstrap. And then the other big one is Operation Serenity. How many people here have heard of Operation Serenity? One back there. Good. Most people don't. Really, really smart. Really smart. Whoever organized Operation Bootstrap said, we can't destroy the culture. If we bring in all these American factories, if we bring in all these American people, what's going to happen to the culture of Puerto Rico? It's going to disappear. So they said, we got to protect it. We've got to create language skills for the people that they learn English and Spanish. We've got to protect the culture, the history, the literature, the music, the bomba, right? We talked about the bomba. Well, this was thousands of dollars that went into the Instituto de Cultura. We got to protect Old San Juan. We don't want it destroyed. So there was this system created, along with the economic booming, with the social and the culture. So this culture that you enjoy today in Puerto Rico, this culture that exports music to the world, was started right there with Operation Serenity. And so that's what's kind of kept everything glued together. Puerto Rico becomes huge success from the 50s to the 60s to the early 70s. The growth in Puerto Rico for 3 years in the 1970s was even higher than in the United States. And what started to happen in the United States? a lot of the senators started to get very upset that jobs were being taken from them and moving to Puerto Rico. So the economy started to shake and rumble, right? It started to shake and rumble. And as manufacturing in the 70s and 80s started to look further out, it started to go to China. It started to go, well, China not yet, but it started to go south to Mexico, and it started to go to other places. Congress said, look, we've got to try to figure out how we're going to keep things here. But what was the big event? And this one you guys should just know and see and feel with your hearts. 1961, what happened in Cuba? What happened in Cuba? Castro. And what happened to all those hotels and casinos in Cuba? Yes, they did. They just got closed. People just got, if I wasn't being recorded, I'd use like 10 more bad words, right? They got closed. But who owned those casinos? Who owned those casinos? Right there. Right there.
The mob.
Yes. 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 And if you know anything of the history of the Kennedys and the mob, they were not good friends. So when the mob or the owners of the casinos, however you want to say it, got closed, where would have been a logical place for them to put their new casinos?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. And where did the Kennedys not want to have them come back in a redo of the Cuba? Puerto Rico. So Kennedy and Luis Muñoz Marin got together and they said, no way. We are not allowing Puerto Rico to follow the footsteps of Cuba, and we are going to shut that down. And how do we shut down? How does Puerto Rico deal with everything? Tax incentives. So big new tax incentives for manufacturing. Big new tax incentives for manufacturing, and a de-incentivizing hospitality, casino gambling. Very hard to do gambling in Puerto Rico. It costs so much. There's so many taxes and fees. And that was by default. What percentage of Puerto Rico's GDP is tourism-based today?
8%.
Yes, 6.75%. Do you know what any other island in the Caribbean's GDP in tourism is? 20, 30, 40, Jamaica 60. I mean, you've got numbers that are huge. Now, the first question I always ask myself is, do the beaches here suck? No. Okay, they don't suck. Are the people really mean and ugly? No. Do we not have rum and good drinks? Okay, so bottom line is this 6.75% was by design. By design. And we got to become the greatest manufacturing pharmaceutical center of the world. Every single drug, legal drug, you guys have ever taken was probably made here, right? In your lives. But it doesn't say made in Puerto Rico. Why? Because it says made in USA. Right? But all of the drugs you've ever taken, legal drugs, were most likely made here. So Puerto Rico becomes this amazing, amazing manufacturing. Every town in Puerto Rico got a plant, right? You drive through every town, you see these plants. And what was good about it for us in real estate was they had to keep some of those profits in the local banks. In the local banks. And they had to use some of those profits for projects. And those were called 936 funds. We must have built 500 homes borrowed on 936 funds. There were 12 banks in Puerto Rico when I arrived in 1993. 1993 to 2005, there were 12 banks. 12 banks, huge banks. Citibank, Scotiabank, Santander, Royal Bank. All these banks, and they all had all this money. And they were just lending it, lending it, and lending it, and lending it, and lending it. So our industry, I've been part of the home builders industry since I arrived, and I was the youngest. You know, when you say being the youngest in the group, that was me, man. I was there. I didn't know anything. Youngest guy. We were building as an industry 10,000 new homes a year. That's a lot of homes. We only build about 700 new homes a year in Puerto Rico today. So imagine going from almost 15 years of building 10,000 new homes. Everybody had a home. 2 homes, 3 homes. Like if you only had 1 home in Puerto Rico back then, you're like, what? You don't have a guest? You know, and then the financing was so good. It still is very good. You had FHA loans where you could borrow 97.75%. You had VA loans where you could borrow 100%. We even had 100% loans for second home financing. Yes, we created a great product, right? Roosevelt Road closed, and we were able to introduce 100% financing for second home. I mean, if that's just not amazing. So the industry grew, everything was amazing. And then what happened? And then what happened? And I don't want to blame it all on 936 demise because it's a combination of many things. But bottom line is the world kept going global, 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 global. Puerto Rico started to look less attractive, right? Because at the end of the day, we still have to follow U.S. laws. We still have the dollar. There's still constraints that are based on U.S. systems, right? And in 936 expired, and I was here when it expired. There was not a fight for it. There was not a fight for it. The governor at the time was a pro-statehood governor, and he says, well, if we get rid of 936, we'll be more like the rest of the states. Maybe we can become more of a state. And it just disappeared. It just disappeared. It was one of the most pathetic things that ever happened. And then the banks started to go. Whooshing sound, disappearing of the banks, right? And so what does the government do in Puerto Rico, right? What does the government do when it needs money? What does it do? It starts borrowing, right? And it just started borrowing. It just started borrowing. It didn't try to figure out how to run a new economy. It didn't figure out how to cut costs. There were one governor that, Luis Fortuño, who's a very, very smart guy, and he said, look, I'm going to cut jobs. He only lasted one term. That's it. He lasted one term. They booted him out.
4,000 votes.
Right. Booted out. So the government started borrowing. And Puerto Rico's government is still to this day, it's almost like a socialist country, right? And you guys are going to be here, and we're trying to cut that government down, but it's still very, very large. It's anywhere between 24 and 28%, which is huge. In the U.S., that's probably 16, 17, maybe less than that. So the government just kept saying, okay, well, you're losing your job because everybody's quitting and all the banks are going and all the construction stopping. We'll hire you, right? And that just made things even worse. So just snowball, snowball, snowball. NAFTA got signed, and we love NAFTA, right? Let's open up our markets, whatever. But then the jobs now started going to Mexico, and Puerto Rico lost its competitive edge. And then they went to Ireland, and we lost even more jobs. So things started to get really bad. And then we had a few governments here that were lost, right? That were just lost. Where do we do? Where do we go? Who do we support? Now, I'm probably one of the most pro-environmental people you know. As a developer, I am so into sustainability. My daughter's an environmental science major. I believe that we have to protect our planet, and what I heard from some of you guys today, concurs with that. But we had some governments that just went, in local governments, that just went off. They just went off, and they said they stopped supporting the rule of law in favor for environmental groups. And when that happens, then the economy disappears, and ultimately with Paseos, the project here next to the Caribe Hilton, what's it called? Paseo Caribe, sorry, right, Paseo, when Paseo Caribe, when an environmentalist went on to the Paseo Caribe, closed the project down and had no ramifications. It was a great day for many environmental groups, right? But it was the last day that an investor came to Puerto Rico. That's it. For 10 years, the investment said we're done. Because if we can't get permits from the government and build a project that's approved by the government, and then we get our project closed, the project went bankrupt, the developer went bankrupt, they left, and that was it. So the island went into a 12-year, and I don't want to use the word recession because that's just false. It's a depression, okay? The definition of depression is, I think, 4 quarters of negative economic growth, right? Who's an economics major here? Is that a correct definition? Can we buy that?
A recession is 2.
How much is a depression? 4? So go 4 times 12. How many quarters is that? How many,
40.
Okay. Puerto Rico was in a depression. And you guys really need to be sensitive to that because a lot of people lost a lot of their lives, right? Their empires disappeared. Families broke up. Families got divorced. People had to leave the island, right? Times were very, very tough. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, yes, the U.S. went into its own, the Great Recession, and the world went into its Great Recession, but there was nobody here to fight for Puerto Rico. And so Puerto Rico got pushed into the back burner for 12 plus years, right? And that was just a very depressing time. So where are we today? That was the history. So, okay, we're starting to, get out of the depression. Things are starting to look better, and then we get hit by a whole bunch of stuff. Hurricanes, earthquakes, storms. The governor resigns because of some texts. And then COVID-19, right? Just like one bad event after another bad event, after another bad event, after another bad event. And we're not talking small things. I mean, when you don't have lights for 6 months and you don't have water and you have to go to a river to wash your hair, that's bad news, right? That's just really bad news. And when a third of the population who live in homes and FEMA comes to them and says, hey, we want to help you, show me your title to your property, and they can't show title to property, and FEMA says, sorry, man, I would love to help you, your home's destroyed, but you don't have title to your property. We don't accept the Spanish system of ownership by being there. A lot of people got screwed, and it was hard, right? Really bad. So what happens to Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico says, well, we're going to go bankrupt. We're going to declare bankruptcy. But Congress decides that they're going to take away that bankruptcy protection. And there's nobody there to fight for Puerto Rico. And they decide to create this new system. And that's fine. And it's this board, this oversight management board. And this board is not elected either by the U.S. citizens or Puerto Rican citizens. It's imposed. And this board now starts to go to work. And I think it was a good thing. I mean, I'm here on the investor side, and at least those investors that disappeared for 10 years, they're starting to say, hey, there's some control, there's some support, I'm okay with this, you know, what's going on. And above all, Puerto Rican local government, they lost control of the budget, right? And so I guess if you mess up economically and you overspend on your credit card, then they're going to take away your credit card, right? So it's a normal thing, okay, and I'm good with that. So where are we today? Where are we today? And this is where you guys are key, right? Because everything up to there was the past. But now we're in the present. Now is when we can start to change things. And now is when we can make a difference. And so a few important things have happened that you guys should be aware of. First of all, the 2020 elections was an incredible thing for Puerto Rico. Why? Because for the first time in 20 plus years, the same government stayed in power. Right? Like what had been happening in Puerto Rico for 20 plus since I lived there. You'd have the Populares, and then you'd have the PNP. And then you'd have the Populares, and then you'd have the PNP. So every 4 years, you'd have a switch of everything. And it would take a year to get organized. So everybody would get fired from the government. All the people that you'd been working with weren't there anymore. And then it would take them a year to put new people in, and then you get used to the new people, and then you'd have to switch. And so we were just like doing this for 4 years, right? 4 years. And I knew and the tourism, if you talk to Brad Dean of DMO, he would tell you that the tourism logo and brand kept switching. It was the best of both worlds, the island of enchantment, blah, 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 blah. It just kept switching. So we kept flip-flopping, and we had no consistency for 20 plus years. So this was huge. This was huge. And the Act 60, which some of you are enjoying, was actually maintained. That's huge. That's like incredible. Like one government proposed it, and a government from the other party accepted it, and it remained. That's huge. So we've had some consistency. The new government is very pro-business, and these tax incentives. I know a lot of the locals of you who are here who have had the highest tax increases ever. The highest sales tax right now in the United States is where? Puerto Rico, right?
We do it better.
Okay, and I know so a lot of the locals here, I know a lot of the locals are feeling the pain and have not been, see the situation with a lot of the Act 60 and Act 2022, and I understand. But the bottom line is if it wasn't for Act 60 and Act 2022, Puerto Rico would not be in the positive position, at least in my business, which is resort development and hospitality and residential, than it is today, right? And the best thing about you guys is you guys have gray matter. You guys have new ideas, you guys have new thoughts on how to change things, and that's important. Because Puerto Rico, for way too long, like many of the Caribbean islands today, have an entrenched group of people that run everything and do everything, and you know something? They don't want change. And when I lived here for 20 plus years, the culture was, I don't want change. And I hit my head. In the first 7 years I lived on this island, I was screaming every day. Like, literally, they took my office. It was a family office. They kept taking my office. And every, 6 months, my desk got pushed further and further away from everybody. Within a year, I was, in this room where there was nobody. Because I was always screaming, going, and I thought I could change the culture here, right? I thought I could change the culture. I thought I could just scream and change the culture and get people to do things and be on time and say what they're going to do. I thought that's how I could do it. Well, I was wrong. I was 25. I was wrong. And the bottom line is that things here move differently, and you got to be mellow, and you got to chill out, and you got to, lower your expectations, right? They say that the key to happiness is being content, right? Being content. We all say Zen, peace, be content. Well, when you're content, you don't necessarily want to improve, or you don't necessarily want other things in the future. You're happy today, right here. That's maybe is not such a bad thing, right? Maybe not, it's not such a bad thing. So bottom line is, we got a government that's got some amazing tax incentives. We got these public-private partnerships that are amazing. I mean, when you have a public-private partnership law that allows you to consume money directly from the consumer, bring in money, and it doesn't have to go to the government, which is one of the few rare public-private partnership laws in the world that allows you to do that, where you can actually generate revenues directly. That's a good law, and it's worked to do a lot of good things. And above all, if you have an idea, for example, the PPP of the airports that are remaining, we talked about airlift. Airlift in Puerto Rico is rocking. Airlift is what saves this island. It's what's going to make this island grow. And there's 11 airports in Puerto Rico. 11 airports. And right now, if there's someone that wants to come and take all the airports under management, the government is saying, please go ahead and do it. Please go ahead and do it. Public-private partnership laws are great. So statehood and all that. My position is really simple. I believe in Puerto Rico's economic independence, right? Economic independence. It's not a question that you want to be a state, you want to be whatever. We first have to be economically independent, right? We have to be able to stand on our own 2 feet economically without having to borrow money to pay our general expenses. And I think that when you see this vote for pro-statehood, there is a movement of people that want Puerto Rico to become part of the United States. That's just where we are right now. And those plebiscites, which there's only been 6, which is kind of incredible. Puerto Rico in the 1950s, more or less, was given its flag and given its constitution, but there's only been 6 plebiscites. And so the first thing that you ask yourself is, why so little, right? Well, Puerto Ricans were really happy for a long time. They didn't need a change, right? Status quo worked. I propose that today maybe the status quo did not work. So then you get we've got some good things going on, right? Promesa, there's a balanced budget. It's taken them 4 years, but we now have a balanced budget that's been submitted. We think that this POA that everybody's talking about is going to be established, and we are going to see an end to this crisis where Puerto Rico can get back to the capital markets, where it can start to become, independent again from a political position. So we are in a great position right now. You guys have lived, the last 4 years have been really, really tough. And COVID-19, they say there's a silver lining in every cloud. For Puerto Rico, COVID-19 has been a huge silver lining, right? Because Puerto Rico will step up and help the United States to bring back its critical manufacturing. Puerto Rico is when companies are told by the U.S. government that we need to have face masks, we need to have this, and they look all across the United States to where they're going to go. Without anybody having to do anything, Puerto Rico will get a lot of those jobs. They're going to get them back. So this for the island is huge because it's also equally distributed all throughout the island. So it's not all just going to be in San Juan. You're going to get jobs in Mayagüez, Ponce, Aguadilla. So the jobs are going to spread out. The real estate's going to spread out. So that's a very, very, very good thing. Okay, money and what's coming on. You guys, this slide really looks funky. There's a lot of money coming in, right? And today I actually had some meetings with the Home Builders Association, and for the first time I'm hearing developers say, we're starting to see it come. And it's been long overdue, but these numbers are huge. These are numbers bigger than anything the island has ever seen. And you guys are now on the wave of it, right? And so when this comes in for housing, and this comes in for infrastructure, and this comes in for so many different uses, right? We're talking plus or minus, $100 billion, of which a lot of that money is going to go into very specific, real estate uses. This is a brand new thing in the history of Puerto Rico. Positive economic growth. I actually have to get on the stage and go. This is incredible, right? Puerto Rico has not had positive economic growth in 12 years. This is huge. This is huge. And this is projected for the next 3 to 5 years. You're going to have great times here. Great times. Puerto Rico, the next 3 to 5 years, you heard it first. You guys are going to love it. You guys are going to be calling your friends saying, I work 8 months and I get paid for 12. My properties are going up. Everything is good. You guys in the short term are going to love being in Puerto Rico because it's taken 12 years to get here. Right? 12 years. And the economic distress is ending, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. So where do I see the next big opportunities? The real estate. This is what was out. That was the history, kind of the past, the present. where do I see us going from here? Now, I've talked to a lot of you, and I wanted to kind of hear what you guys are investing in. A lot of you are buying houses. Some of you are buying multifamily. I've heard some commercial, some hospitality. I think the number one on the industrial manufacturing is just big. It's a no-brainer, right? You've got the great expertise in labor. You've got these amazing tax incentives. You've got the need, right? The whole world needs to bring some of its critical manufacturing back. It's not just the U.S., right? Every country needs to make their own masks. It's like saying you're going to fight a war, but you're going to have your enemy producing your arms, right? Yeah, I'm going to fight a war, but I'm going to have my enemy make my arms. No, that doesn't work that way, right? So this coming back to Puerto Rico is going to naturally move. And I think the other big area is energy independence. And energy has been a problem on this island since day one, right? At 33 cents a kilowatt hour, that's sometimes 3 to 4 times more expensive than anywhere in the U.S., right? This air that we need to have, right? We can't be in this room without this air. This thing is very, 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 very expensive. And we didn't have a way to get around this, right? We had this big government agency that imports oil, has Jones Act costs to that. When there's a hurricane, there's no oil that comes in. I mean, just a bad system. But we now have an opportunity because of many technologies, right? Solar, geothermal, wind, blah, 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 blah. We have the ability to take the island and go independence. And I think anybody can get us even a little bit there, right? Put a solar panel on your house, build a hotel with some resilient systems, whatever it takes, right? But we need to become sustainable, and we need to have energy independence. We need microgrids. And I think that the government and the world is moving in this direction, and that's going to be huge. Puerto Rico's got sun. Does Puerto Rico have some sun?
And wind.
It's got sun and wind. Okay, so we're halfway there. We don't have those issues. Tourism. So tourism is dear to my heart. I think that today we realize that the low-hanging fruit for this island is tourism. I mean, it's a no-brainer. 6.7% of the GDP today is tourism, right? So we have room to build 20, 30, 40,000 new hotel rooms. And it wouldn't even be a big deal, right? Dominican Republic, 20 years ago, and Puerto Rico had about the same amount of hotel rooms. Dominican Republic today has over 100,000 hotel rooms. Puerto Rico, what are we at? 40,000. Okay, so if that, right? So what happened? Why were in 20 years Puerto Rico didn't build any hotels? Well, we know the reason. We heard the reason. People are now starting to figure out. The DMO, you support the DMO. You support Invest Puerto Rico. Those are organizations that didn't exist, right? So, you know what's amazing is how many of you guys have been to conferences in Puerto Rico that were speaking English? How many of you guys have been to a conference like today? Do you know that in the 20 years that I lived here, I went to 0 conferences that they spoke in English? 0, no conferences. All my business, all those projects, I didn't do anything in English. I never spoke in English, right? The island is changing, and organizations like the DMO.
What's the DMO?
It's a destination marketing organization. It's an organization that is half public, half private, with the sole mission to put continuation of tourism, to keep tourism top of mind for Puerto Rico, and not change every 4 years as a new government, but have a continuation of the marketing. It's a marketing organization, and it's doing a hell of a job, right? It's doing a hell of a job, and it's allowing Puerto Rico to get on the map, because people come to Puerto Rico, they love Puerto Rico, but they just never heard about it. And it was the West Side. I always call it the West Side Story Syndrome, right? You guys, the Jackson, right? Like, we got stuck in the 1950s and 60s, like, where people thought that everybody here is a criminal. Like, when you guys first came here, was crime a top concern of yours? Okay. Yes, no?
It's a huge concern for
Okay,
anybody
okay.
looking to move here.
Was your expectations worse or better, or, you know, was it as bad as what you thought it would be?
No, it was not as bad.
Not as bad, right? That's
Not
my
as bad as I was told.
right. You're like arrive and you expect people are going to start be shooting, right? Just don't go and buy drugs in the projects. Okay, just don't do that.
Get licensed.
Right, get a license. So not for the shooting, not for the shooting. So tourism here, if you look at Costa Rica, and I was talking to some Costa Rica guys who are going to Costa Rica very soon. Okay, you know, Costa Rica's done a great job at positioning itself, right? this sustainable place, marketing, blah, blah, blah. Puerto Rico's getting there. And it's a slow process, but we're getting there. But your projects are determined. What's the one major thing? And we work all throughout the Caribbean. We're in all the islands. What's the most important thing for tourism?
Security.
Next. That's good, but not the top. What determines the success of tourism? Access. More specifically, what?
Public transportation.
Airlift. Airlift. Whenever you're going to look at an island investment, you got to look at airlift. If airlift is there, you have a chance of succeeding. If there's no airlift, forget about it. Puerto Rico's airlift is amongst the best in the whole Caribbean. What the statistics that were mentioned today about this airlift is huge, right? It's huge. And we are saved because of this airlift. So that tourism is my second, is my third. The other is resiliency, environmental, social governance. If we don't learn from the past, we're just going to keep repeating the mistakes. We cannot continue to do things the way we did. Hurricanes aren't going anywhere, right? Climate change is not going anywhere, and I don't care if you don't agree with me, it's just not going anywhere. And we have to build stronger, harder, better, and faster. And we've got to create social structures and laws and insurance and in homeowners associations that can handle this change, because while our hardening of our assets is really important, right? Why did all the hotels in Puerto Rico fail many of them fail after the hurricanes? Was it because their security windows failed? No. Was it that their reinforced concrete walls failed? No. Because they couldn't get petroleum after 6 days and their air conditioner turned off. And what happens to a closed room in the Caribbean after 2 weeks of having your air turned off?
The walls start growing.
The walls start growing. So millions and millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars were lost, not because of the structure, but the whole environmental, social, ESG, right? So we've got to support our communities beyond just the hardening of the asset, right? We've got to support the communities. We've got to be thinking that we as a people need to do that, because if not, what's going to happen to those insurance companies? They don't have a contract. They don't have to provide you insurance. They're going to go. They're going to go. So if we don't harden our assets, we don't harden our environmental, our social, and our governments, right, we are going to lose our island. My fifth and really important one is blockchain-centric projects. So I think the Puerto Rico today is in an incredible opportunity. I mean, we have been blessed with being this blockchain place in the Caribbean, right? And the reason that is so important is because if you look at the technology of blockchain, no, I'm good. Yeah. If you look at the this slide should not look like that, but I will decipher it. It's on blockchain and it's crypto coded, so so you needed me to be here. So Puerto Rico has some really challenging issues when it comes to title. Okay, not that the title's bad, and I know some of you purchased real estate and you didn't get title insurance. It's okay, your title is good. It's not like other places like Panama where you might buy something and someone knocks on your door and says it's mine. Title is fine, but title is not very prolific, right? About 28% of all of the homes in Puerto Rico aren't even registered. They're not registered. Spanish laws, right? Oh, I don't need to register. Everybody knows it's my house. Right? And then out of the properties that are even registered, are property taxes higher here or low?
Low.
What was the year of the last appraisal for property taxes?
1958.
There you go, gentleman from the back. 1958. But I don't understand. If most of the municipalities in the world and in the United States generate up to 70 to 90% of their revenues from real estate taxes, why does Puerto Rico almost have no real estate taxes? Why? Why?
Too much of a burden on poor people.
Okay, that's a reason. But what about the rich people? Why aren't they paying real estate taxes? And why aren't the office buildings paying taxes? And why aren't so we have an issue here, and it's not been an issue that's wanted to be talked about forever. And the bottom line is Puerto Rico has not had the need for real estate taxes. It hadn't. It had all these incentives, 936 and all those before that, and it was able to borrow all the bonds. It didn't need its real estate taxes. If you don't need it, Don't charge it. Okay? So we have a system of very little registrations. We have a system of very little payment, right? When do you, and if you ever didn't pay your real estate taxes, when is it typical for people to pay their real estate taxes? Licenciado. Licenciado is attorney over there. When do normal people pay their, when? When you sell. So, okay, I'm not going to pay my taxes for 20 years, and then I'll sell my house, and then I'll pay my taxes. That is the custom. Now, is that very good for the local government? Is that very good for that abandoned building that's sitting there, that the owners are living in California, and that building's been sitting there for 40 years? And is that good for the island? No. No way. That sucks. Bad for a lot of things. So what happens is we've got a title system that needs improvement. We got a real estate tax system that needs improvement. And talk to me about the informal economy, right? Puerto Rico, you guys ever hear about this informal economy? What's that? What's an informal economy? Cash. And how big is the informal economy in Puerto Rico? That's a little high. How big?
10%, 15%.
Okay, that's a little low. Okay, we're going to negotiate because nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Because it's an informal economy. But the numbers that have been, by the federal chair of New York in 2020, said that number was about 28%. That means almost a third of the whole economy of Puerto Rico is unknown. That means we don't really know who's working. We don't really know who's paying this. We don't know. We just don't know. It's all cash. So for me as a developer, was that a good thing or a bad thing? Bad and good. Bad and good. Bad and good. It was good because we do a project and suddenly everyone would show up with a lot of money. But it was bad because when we go to the bank and we show a market study report, and the market study report would say there's not enough people in this municipality to do houses that are 150,000. We'd say, yeah, read between the lines, I'm going to sell them at 250, and they would sell out, right? So there's subtleties about understanding how to deal with informal economy. But the bottom line is an informal economy good for business as a general rule?
No.
No, because there's no information, right? And investors like yourselves, right? What's the biggest thing that stops me, right? When Iman comes and he says, Adam, I want to buy a hotel. And I say, sure, I'd love to buy you, I'd love to find a hotel we can work on together, we can do. And he's going to say, show me the numbers. And I don't have the numbers. And he leaves. And he goes to some place where he can see the numbers. So we are losing millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of investment because we can't show them the numbers. So we got this informal economy in Puerto Rico, and it's bad. It's bad for investment. It's bad for stability. It's good for the people that aren't paying the taxes, right? But it's generally bad. So when you look at Puerto Rico and you say, okay, we've got this stuff going on, can we solve it? Should we solve it? Is it important to solve? Is it? Okay, I mean, but we love living in Puerto Rico where we can not pay taxes and just be chill, right? Well, I propose, and as I said at the beginning, economic independence is the key to our success here, right? We cannot continue to rely on tax incentives and borrowing money to keep an island afloat. We just can't. So what has come to the rescue in technology that now allows us to solve a lot of these issues, and that's blockchain. And if you guys have not, the younger people, if I was under the age of 25, if you don't become experts in blockchain and coin and all that, you're missing the boat. For older people, we got to catch up and we got to work harder and we got to make it happen. But the bottom line is you've now got a technology that provides a few things that are critical. And one is clarity, right? Clarity. Like you can see what's going on. We know what's happening, right? And the other is trust. Trust, right? So what I see happening in Puerto Rico from a big, big perspective, from a big opportunity, is if we can match, right, this nebulous system that we have today of real estate, and we can bring it together with this clarity and trust, we have the opportunity to really change the world. And I think, like yourself, if you're going to move to Puerto Rico and you're going to live here, change the world. Do something good. That's the goal. Change the world. Do something good. So there's a huge need for housing, right? There's a huge need for housing. So how do we build the housing better? How do we do this? And my thesis in this is that we need to combine sustainable building and development, right? Our houses have got to be strong. They've got to withstand storms. They've got to be energy resilient. But we also need to figure out a better way of doing it through blockchain. And I'm going to conclude with just one little project that I'm working on. And this is a project that we're calling a master planned residential community created on the digital platform of blockchain. Now, I do not want to come off as a blockchain expert, but I do know a few things. I know that whatever we think we know today, 3 years from now, we're going to totally be wrong. And I know that 90% of the companies that exist today will not be there in 3 years. So there's no problem. Let's just take a chance and figure it out and invent. And maybe we'll get lucky. But with blockchain, the key is to do a few things. If we can, Michael, awesome title, if we can get the title of our real estate digitalized, right, then from there on, we have the capacity to go into smart contracts. And basically, smart contracts is just a fancy word for avoiding a lot of excess fat and middlemen and being able to have clarity in our transactions, right? So the goal is to create communities that are based on digitalization and that can have contracts that are smart contracts, and that now we can start to figure out better ways to do things. This is a project that's going to be an affordable housing project. And our mission has always been, how do we get people who have been living in affordable housing to go from being renters to owners? And I think that coin-based tokenization today can provide part of that solution, right? Can provide part of that solution. So people that live in public housing should be rewarded for doing things like recycling. They should be rewarded for when they leave their home, they turn off their air conditioners, right? They should be rewarded for having their kids just do simple things like go to school, right? They should be rewards. There should be systems in our public housing that allows people to get to the next step. And I think that through blockchain and coins, we have the capacity to do it. So in conclusion, because I think I'm just about finishing up, okay, I won't go that long, but I just want to say, when you guys come to Puerto Rico and you're going to look at the real estate, a few things just on really basic levels. You're going to need to be very patient, right? I always tell everybody 30% more on the budget. So whatever you think your numbers are going to be, just add some stuff to the budget. And if the contractor doesn't come in exactly at the number he said or she said, you know, there aren't too many other contractors behind him or her. So realize it. Go really slow. Go really slow with everybody. You know, be kind. And then besides the budget, it's going to take a lot longer, right? So you guys are all going to have to slow down. Okay? You're not living in Puerto Rico because you want to become New York City mega billionaires, right? If you want that, go to New York. You're living here because you have other things that are important. So you're going to have to slow down, and your investment timetables are going to have to be factored in, right? Your benefit will be that as you learn the culture and you learn to adapt to this way of being, you will have these barriers to entry because people are going to come in, right? During the hurricane, I was getting a call in my office once every 2 days from people that wanted to build a new grid in Puerto Rico. And I just spoke to the governor, and the governor says, yeah, they're going to approve my project, and I just kept getting all these calls, and I'm going to go to Puerto Rico. And then like 3 months later, I would not hear from them anymore, and they just would disappear. Like they just disappear, right? Because like myself, when I first moved here and I was hitting my head against the wall for the first 7 years, right? Don't do that. Just, be a little bit wiser, take it slower. But Puerto Rico, you guys are in the right time at the right moment. And I really hope that you guys each, with whatever system, concept, whatever you're doing, you guys do it for the good of the island, and the island will reward you tenfold. So that's kind of all I have to say. If you guys have questions, I'll be open to answer any questions. Sure.
What are the chances Act 60 survives?
But based on, since 1898, there's been thousands of tax incentives implemented, and thousands of them have not. So my guess is this will be just like every other tax incentive. It'll come and it'll go. Yep.
Why did you not mention opportunity zones in your presentation?
Oh, it was kind of in that cryptid stuff that's there, but yes, 97% of the island, or 98% is opportunity zone. It's a very good thing, especially for long-term investments. So yeah, it's hot. I mean, The OZs in the U.S. as well kind of got this big rush of people looking into it, and then it kind of mellowed out a bit. I don't think it's lost any of its value, but it just seems to have cooled off a bit. Sure.
Can you go more into blockchain?
Sure.
And how that works with real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest one is like raising money for developments, right? So let's talk about you guys want to raise some money. Well, your traditional choices are you go to Nate, and Nate says, yeah, I can hook you up with a nice private equity, I can give you a nice loan or whatever. Or you go to, there's no bankers here, but Southern Knee works for all the big banks back there, and you try to go to a bank and get a traditional loan, right? Or younger people, they know crowdfunding, so you try to do some crowdfunding. That's all works too, right? But what are the problems with real estate? There's generally two big problems with real estate. Number one is liquidity, right? Once you buy something, you're kind of stuck with it, right? And the second problem with real estate, the second from a funding perspective, is that it's kind of hard to raise a lot of money. It's hard. It takes a long time. So, and then your investors have to stick with you. They have to stick with you till an exit period, right? Either you sell that house that you bought and repay the bank, or if it's a hotel, you got to build it and then put people in it and then So with tokenization today, we're able, from a development perspective, we're able to take our assets and be able to sell them to hundreds of people with their phone. And they can come in and out of our investment at any time that they want, right? So it's providing a new way to raise capital. And I think that's a very simple, the easiest of the blockchain technologies today that's going to be the most used. We see a lot of business plans.
Are you doing it currently?
I'm evaluating the process. I'm talking to a lot of people who are starting to do it in the hotel industry, but we have not yet to do a capital raise. But I think the capital raise is the easiest because it makes the most sense, and it's I would say your starting period in terms of the use of the blockchain. It's people who are in it, they go, okay, I get it, I know what to do. Yeah.
What are the legal hurdles you're seeing integrating blockchain in terms of accredited investors and other SEC offerings?
Not my area of expertise, but I can talk about the title part.
Sure.
And that part is, in the ideal world, in Puerto Rico tomorrow, we'd get rid of the whole title system. Tomorrow, right? I don't think it's going to happen that way. I think we're going to need to run parallel for a while. A project like this is going to need to set up its whole title system. And then ultimately we will, if enough of us in the private sector do it, ultimately the government is going to say, okay, you guys just do it better. We will adapt. But I think for the moment, every business plan that I've ever seen on title and tokenization is they running parallel situations until ultimately the government's accepted. This is very revolutionary, and it eliminates many jobs of the people who are sitting back there, and it's going to create and many of the people that are sitting here, right? I mean, so it's not easy for a lot of people to deal with because they're scared, but like the internet, it also will create thousands of hundreds of other new jobs. And real estate brokers, I mean, you guys are a dying breed. And the bottom line is you get paid way too much, and I'm a broker too, and we can spend our time also more efficiently. So we spend a lot of time ourselves doing things that maybe we shouldn't have to waste our time on. So there's a lot of different professionals that are going to be morphed into new professions. Yeah, dollar.
Are you working to integrate these microgrids into any new construction projects?
I could not stand in front of you anywhere in the Caribbean and do any development that doesn't have a microgrid. I would not be able to face myself in the mornings. There's no way anybody should ever do a development that doesn't have a microgrid. I mean, you just put it in. It doesn't take a lot of space. You do the calculations. You put it in your development. You can sell the electricity that you're not using. You don't even have to pay for your electrical grids. There's all these companies that'll come and they'll put up the electrical grids as long as you just, make a contract to buy their electricity. So it's like a no-brainer from a development perspective today. In my opinion, it's a no-brainer to have microgrids on your thing. Yeah, it's just like, come on.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome steering as well as here.
Yeah.
Where are you developing on the island currently?
So we're involved. We were just recently working on a project. I was with Nate working on a manufacturing facility in Aguadilla, a 300,000 square foot facility in Aguadilla next to the airport. And so obviously that was kind of how I spent my COVID. My office got closed down during COVID, and I ended up moving into the bathroom in my apartment. It was just the only place I could lock the door. And Nate and I started to kind of research this whole bring back critical manufacturing, and I was shocked. I mean, half the things I told you about manufacturing in Puerto Rico I didn't know, and I lived here for 20 years. So I was like, yeah, Puerto Rico, is that good? And so was active in that, working on a hotel project in Rio Grande. You know, that's potentially a 3,000 key project. You know, I think Puerto Ricans and tourism, it has nowhere to go but up. And looking for new transactions and new partnerships. I'm really looking for people in the crypto space who can teach me about blockchain. You know, I want to learn. I want to push the envelope. I want to find new revenue streams that don't exist. And if we fail in certain things, whatever. But that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Have you been to a Crypto Monday?
I'm going on Monday for the first time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm psyched. Yeah, I live in Miami. I moved to Miami 5 years ago. So kind of my wife and I, we had our plan once our kids graduated from college, we'd move to Miami. So it was kind of our long-term plan. We lived there. And I really thought that I was not going to do more business in Puerto Rico. And
you stay off one more year, you can come back for Act 60 again.
I know, man. I know. It's that's my wife would love nothing more for us to move back. But I think you know, you guys are really the testament to the new Puerto Rico, and I'm just so happy to see you, and I just, you know, wish you all of the success and the wisdom to kind of find your own space, you know. And I would say my leaving message is there is a big drop of professionalism, right? So on this island, you can go from some of the smartest, brightest human beings on earth that have great educations and have, you know, have just incredible integrities. But the drop is pretty fast, right? So join good organizations. I belong to the Puerto Rico Builders Association for 25 plus years. Just some excellent people there. You know, get into the society, learn who the good groups are. You know, right here, what Catherine is doing. I mean, this networking is really invaluable. And get to learn who the good professionals are would be my number one suggestion, because you can just twirl around in circles for years if you're not with the right people. So I guess we're done. Thank you, guys.
Adam, before you go, did you have any, were you going to talk about this project, or were you setting appointments or doing anything while you're in town?
Yeah, sorry. So I forgot to sell. That's great. So yeah, we are looking for people that want to join us on this great venture. We are planning a trip to see the site on Saturday. It's in Humacao, Puerto Rico. It's 542 acres, beautiful mountain views of the water and the oceans. And so we're looking for potential partners, either in the blockchain or investors or someone who wants to come into our GP group. You know, this is an affordable housing play with some potential for hotel, solar farm, critical manufacturing, and retail. It's a really big site, so it's a master plan, 20-year plus community project. But we are going to do a site visit on Saturday. I think we're going to start in the morning with your...
We do our Deal Makers Breakfast.
Yeah,
We have every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. So
Yeah.
that usually wraps up around 9:30 or so. So after that, we could.
Yep, so we're planning a site visit around midday, and I'll take you to see everything, and then we can, you know, talk in details. But
Would you mind? Yeah. Right after the Deal Makers Breakfast, we'll go. Yeah, we'll go see this. Now, what I'm curious about this, and Imran, you might be too. Now, aren't you using some like LIHTC or block grant funding? Is there some other?
yeah, absolutely. So I think that the risk mitigation today is kind of has to be your guiding light, right? Like we're in Puerto Rico right now. We're still technically in a bankruptcy. And whenever you're going to do anything, you want to try to mitigate your risk. We are in an amazing have the opportunity, there's big funding coming in, right? So Puerto Rico, because it's part of the U.S., can use all of the U.S. programs. Low-income housing tax credits are eligible here. The 4% is almost automatic today. And now there's the community development block grant fundings, which we talked about.
4% what?
LIHTC, which is tax credits. So this project is basically mounting a few different programs together in the capital stack. But it's going to include CDBG DR funding, and it's also including LIHTC funding. And then there could be some potential opportunity zone situations as well. So what we're looking to do is mitigate the risk as much as possible and build affordable housing. I didn't mention it, but we own, my family owns housing projects in Puerto Rico. We have about 18 projects throughout the island, so we're well versed. We've been doing this since the 1960s. So we know about affordable housing, and this project would just be another one of the projects in the affordable housing.
Were those block grants available a year ago, 5 years ago? Has that always been available here to do that kind of thing?
There's always been certain funding available. Like we used rural development. I don't know, the older guys might know Farmers Home. It was a program that we used to build all our projects. Now it's called rural development.
Is that from the USDA?
Yes, USDA. So right. So that's how we did our funding in the past. These are all private affordable housing projects versus the government ones. Every project has a social worker in it. We have a psychologist in most of the projects that come once a week to meet with the people. So it's a really, really great quality of life. Rec centers for the families and daycare and all that stuff. So it's really just a wonderful place to help people, move through life and get out of their, economic status and go forward. So yeah, we'll be out. We'll be touring, wearing shorts and getting some sun. All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh my God. Maybe I'll just talk. Can you hear me? Okay. Maybe I won't do the microphone thing. Thank you. Dropping the little card. Oh yeah. I think I have David's. You can give him David's. My brain is exploding. There was so much information and so much history. Thank you. I learned so much tonight. Truly, that was amazing. So just a couple more things. I like to always open up the group to anyone who has any needs or wants. If anyone's looking for a partner, if anyone has a deal, if anyone is looking to share anything. Okay, just a chance for you to say, hey, I got a deal.
Got it. Yeah, so this Saturday I'm going to do another open house at 12 to 2. I don't know when you guys, what time are you guys? You're going to stop by and then you're going to do your thing.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to head out right after the.
So if you want to swing by theirs and then swing by mine later.
Okay, and we'll be kind of close.
3. Yeah, they're not that far apart. At Roosevelt Roads, that's the resort that I have, owner financing. So if you have interest in owning part of the resort, then swing by. We'll have some food and burgers. I don't know what we're going to have, but we'll have beer for sure. So come by.
Come by for beer.
And if you just Google Ocean Club at Roosevelt Roads, love to have you guys stop by.
Yeah, and if you're on the REIA Rico YouTube channel, I did a video yesterday about Roosevelt Roads and with all the numbers and sort of, what it's about. So that sort of breaks it down. I tried to link your video into my video, and all I was able to do was make it a playlist. So I still have to figure out how to put it in there, but you have a really good video, like the drone shots and everything. Mine is just like numbers and why I'm investing in it. So I think it's a really cool project. Yes, Fabian, thank you for coming back from Florida.
You hear me? Hello.
I don't think it's on.
So I'm buying a property in 1818 Manuel Fernandez Juncos for $165,000. It's a 4-unit commercial, and I'm buying it cash. But if you want to be a private lender, I'll be happy to take your money so I can buy more.
What kind of interest rate will you pay?
As little as possible. Just kidding. I'll make it worth it. Just talk to me.
Okay. All right, beautiful. Okay, so needs and wants. Just a reminder, we're looking for sponsors. If you have a title company, contractor, closing attorney, homeowner's insurance.
You wanted to talk. Interested.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
regenerative housing, Airships PR project.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
interested.
I've got a big group of people, you know, in the regenerative industry that are looking, you know, at land development, plots, have plans, A-frames, you know, the earthship projects that use tires on the inside. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a video about this.
Yeah.
Well, that's right up the alley of REIA Rico. So
Right.
we'll talk
Awesome.
at the end.
Gracias.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yes, Saturday seems to be a very busy day.
It does.
We have an auction, a real estate auction going on.
Yay, auction.
Saturday also.
Okay.
Over 60 properties are going to auction. And I'm very, very versed because I've been going to this auction for 5 years now. I also know Betsy and Belkis from the company that runs the auction.
Is this foreclosures or what kind of
It's
auction?
private, some private foreclosures, it's bank foreclosures, it's a lot of different properties that they come together and they do this 5 or 6 times a year. And now we've had our second one for this year after COVID.
Wow.
So, if anybody's interested, it's on Zoom, and when you get registered, I'll get you registered, but at the same time, remember that I'm your realtor, and they ask you, because then we can go, I've done it many times where I have you on the phone, talking to you while the auction's going on. So,
Very cool. So what time is this? It's virtual
starts at
or?
10 o'clock.
Okay.
Starts at 10, but they'll start at about 11:30.
Yeah. And it goes until the last property sold.
Okay.
And there's land, there's multifamily, there's fixer-uppers, there's everything there.
You can bid in advance, right?
Sorry?
Can you bid in advance?
Pay in advance?
Bid.
in advance.
Bid in advance, no. You have to
It's
bid
a live
there.
auction.
What's the average price based on like what like kind of as his value is for?
From my experience, the banks still want about 70 or 80% of the value of the property. So if it's valued at $100,000, they're still going to want 70 or 80,000 for the property. And it is with reserves. So they are not required to sell it to you until it's with reserves. So it gets past the reserve point. And you will know when the reserve is, because you'll hear the bell start ringing. And that is most irritating when it's on Zoom, because you can't hear anything after that bell starts ringing. But I know. Welcome to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Is there a list of like the 60 properties?
Yes, there is. And I can send you the list, the link, or I can just send it to you as a PDF. So,
Can you put it on
and
the
so,
REIA Rico?
I'm sorry?
Can you put that list on the REIA Rico so you're not messaging all of us? We all are pretty interested.
Well, again,
I think
send me an email.
I think he wants to make sure that if he represents you, that you're, so for him, he probably wants your email.
Yeah, definitely. And again, because if I help you get registered, then of course I'm going to put myself down as the realtor.
Of course.
But you all can register. It's Casa Subasta, very simple, Spanish for house, auction.com, and click on the folleto is what they call it, but it's a pamphlet.
Proyecto.
Yes, pamphlet, and it'll have the properties there, and how to register, and all the requirements to register, because you gotta come up with some deposit money before you can show up. Okay, and so, just want everybody to know, and I'm here.
If you guys weren't gonna go to the auction and now you are, do some as your broker.
Exactly. And we still have a day, if you wanna go out tomorrow and look at the property. I can show you where they are, how to find the GPS. I did a class on getting the cream information on it, everything. So, let me know.
Awesome. Yes, Brent.
If anybody buys a house at that auction or wants to do a flip or has property in general, I do cinematic drone photography.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone wants to take videos of their house or land, you guys can also contact me.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. I just have one last thing. I like to say, I just always want to tell people to do their own due diligence with anything they're going to invest in. Always do your own homework, look at what things are. We're not necessarily sponsoring or endorsing anyone that is here or anyone that you meet here tonight. So just do your homework, keep yourself safe. And with that, thank you all for coming. And it was a great night, and see you next time.